So hello to everybody on YouTube. My name is Chad Nova and thank you for joining us today for this discussion about multi-core processing and AMD at CES, and most importantly the unveiling of Vega 2 as well as the unveiling of Ryzen 3000 series. Now we already know that the Ryzen 3000 series has not been unveiled in a way to get any concrete definition of performance. We are still guesstimating the clock speed based on the performance we saw in the Cinebench render, but I'm not here really to talk about the Ryzen 3000 series. I'm really here to tackle Intel's 10 nanometer architecture as well as the Intel X599 platform. So, what does this mean for you at home? Now, let's go ahead and open up Cinebench. Now, for many of you who saw the demonstration provided by Intel, you also noticed their machine required two, not one, but two 24-pin ATX adapters. This means we are already pulling a level of current so heavy not even one 24-pin adapter can deliver the type of amperage or current. Voltage is force. Current is stream. You're looking at a type of power draw that Intel could never talk anymore about performance versus wattage, because X599 is Intel doing everything they can to try to reclaim the top performance benchmark. But let's be very clear here, folks. Right now, you can get 32 cores, and let me show you. If you're looking for 32 cores, the reason is you may be a gamer sometimes, not often, sometimes, but in reality you are probably a content creator. Now, I can load Cinebench, put that off to one side. I can load Process Lasso, put it off to the other side, and then go ahead and provide you a little bit of an overlay of the voltages of the CPU during the render. So we'll bring it up here because right now my little dialogue is blocking it being lower. But if I go ahead and run this CPU benchmark, keep in mind we are also running the Process Lasso window as well as the temperature monitor. And these things will take up CPU resources to be on the screen. But even there, a cold run, I'm already over 5,500 in Cinebench. And if you don't understand what this means, I get it. Because to you, you might say, well, this is like one cherry-picked benchmark. How does this apply to me in the real world? Well, let's go ahead and load Premiere Pro. Now, Premiere Pro is a piece of software that many of us use for delivering content to you. Now, currently I'm delivering content in a live stream using a hardware capture card, the Elgato HD60, and I am splicing the stream from a dual monitor, basically a duplicate display, into the captured card into my MacBook Pro, so I can deliver this stream to you. So therefore, performance should not be too heavily impacted, and I can go ahead and show you what the real-world performance of Threadripper should be. So right now, I have this entire sequence, and I'm going to go ahead and set the resolution to full. Now, keep in mind, we have sequences here that are using more than just the normal standard effects. This would be like a normal transcode, but come down here, for instance. See where the bar turns red? Once we get around here, we're going to start doing Red Giant denoiser. And I'm going to show you a glitch that occurs in Premiere Pro that for a lot of people they'd be unaware of when they're rendering, asking why they're having performance hits. But this here will prove software is mainly your limitation. So if we go ahead and render the in to out, actually let's go ahead and cancel that and move Premiere Pro off to the side so we can go ahead and see process Lasso in its full glory. So let me find out why we're not able to see the whole graph. Alright, whatever. It doesn't matter. So, we're going to come back over here. We've got our video loaded, and here is where we're going to enact denoiser, and then I believe we have warp stabilizer somewhere in here too. Alright, there it is. So we have a clip with warp stabilization applied. That's a very single-threaded, very heavily intensive CPU-based process. So let's go ahead and render this entire sequence from start to back, so in to out, and just look at the performance. And when we finally get to the part that would be where the denoiser is applied, we're going to go ahead and cancel the render, and that's going to clear up all of Premiere Pro's like caching to be able to render denoiser at the full performance that it could. And as you can see from the timeline, we're obviously powering right through. So here we are, we're on the section with warp stabilizer, and we powered right through it. And look, we're about to power right through this entire segment and go straight into the section where we are trying to render denoiser. So if you pay attention to the amount of frames being processed, the moment we run into the part with denoiser, we're going to see this number like literally fall off a cliff. Ironically, by now we should be seeing it slow down, but I couldn't tell you right now, folks. Maybe restarting the computer and dialing in the voltages a little bit more accurately. Nope, there it is. Okay, so you see we got stuck at 8702. So it's obvious we have a problem right here. So we're going to cancel the render. We're going to come back here and render into out. And it's only going to render that specific part of the timeline because it rendered everything else. And look at the performance delta. We're already seeing 74, 77, 70, 80, 80. So it's obvious. Everything we're talking about here is more or less software bound. Anybody who tries to tell you a 2990WX is a waste of money is not aware that you are buying the top tier Ryzen 2 cores that all perform in a way that AMD decided this is worth being in a 2990WX. So the point of the WX, the 2990, is not to be breaking 4 gigahertz all day long, because the entire TDP of that package alone would not make sense in an all day long stable build. You're talking about having a pump failure because you're trying to displace over 600 watts of heat. It's not going to work. The 2990WX is all about running at Ryzen's optimal speed setting. So right now I'm at about 3.7, which we'd say is the upper tier of voltage versus speed, before you start entering a realm where you're throwing voltage out the window to try to achieve a minimal amount of speed gain. 3.7 for the 2990WX seems to be where we want to be. But I really would like to take my performance higher. This is where we're going to finally talk about the X599 platform. Imagine I am sitting on a 14 to 10 nanometer architecture, but AMD has already guaranteed I can upgrade from this to 7 nanometer and basically enjoy not having to swap a goddamn thing other than the CPU. How does this upset you as a customer when I have an Intel i7-5820K that you could argue, well, you know, you obviously didn't have the money, you didn't have this, you didn't have that, but let's think about it. Any i9 owner right now is spending less than I did on 6 cores, 12 threads. And if Intel had early on invested in getting the interposer to allow interconnections between multiple dies, Intel would have been able to mitigate the cost of large but failed dies. But that was never the goal. Imagine being Intel and all of the hardware manufacturers of motherboards, CPUs, GPUs. If you could make people upgrade constantly, everybody is happy except for the consumer. But the consumer has no choice. So that's why computers have been prohibitively expensive for years. AMD, with Ryzen, came back as the second source supplier to remind people that in America, you are entitled to having a second source. A monopoly can never exist in America simply because even if the government or the business were to all work together, the people themselves would never accept it. And no matter how much money is funneled into trying to avoid that future, it will always come back to it. Intel is very used to having manipulative profits where they pretend as though you need a new socket for new features. But when I took one look at TR4 and what Dr. Lisa Su described, I realized I could go with TR4, and in 5 years, the worst I will face is maybe a motherboard upgrade. Only because maybe AMD finds an entire architectural way to deliver performance that you have to rewrite. But the odds are so limited because AMD already provided so many pins that have yet to be unlocked in their full capacity. And meanwhile on Intel, we're trying to push X599 on 10 nanometer, and we need 2 power connectors to be able to deliver a performance equal to the competition on 1 power connector. Ask yourself, folks, are you being gypped because a company, well, do you think they care about you? I mean, you probably have family who doesn't care about you. You probably have friends who don't care about you. But you're so invested in a company for caring about you, but you don't see. You complain about microtransactions. You complain about the lack of single-story quality games outside of Skyrim and The Witcher. You complain about the future of computing, but yet you don't complain about the one company responsible for x86 and the behavior of the entire market afterward. It doesn't make sense to me, folks. But just because I love you all, we've completed the render. Let's go ahead. See, we're going all the way down here. Everything's good, and then right here we get stuck, right? So if we render only the selection. Notice the increase in frames per second. That's the power of Threadripper, folks. As you can see, we are seeing full core utilization even if not every core is using at max. Can you ask yourself, call single-threaded performance if I don't have a single thread maxed out? Imagine what I'd do to you if programmers were talented enough to keep up with Chad. Have a great day, folks. Ask yourself these questions. You're gonna buy AMD, and I know it. I don't need to be paid to say this because I got paid by my woman to build AMD. And guess what? She will defend me all the way down. I can't see Intel doing the same for anybody that they paid. And you know what? If Intel paid you